Good evening, my name is Shreya Alcindor, and I will be talking to you all about paraphilia in the book Zombies by Joyce Carol Oates. Zombie is a mind-blowing story based on a series of events taking place in the life of a murderer. Quentin P. is a main character in his early 30s. He's a caretaker at a residence where his grandparents live. Joyce Carol Oates somewhat gave Quentin P. an attitude of, I didn't do anything wrong. There was nothing wrong with what I did at all in any type of way. He honestly was a very disturbed man that suffered from a disorder that he, to me, could not help. He's on probation now for the sexual molestation of an African American child. And he explains events in his life that honestly, he explains it as if it's just a walk in the park, or it's another day or another event in his life. So one event that he does talk about is the stalking of his main victim, Squirrel, who he seems just completely and totally infatuated with. He is in love with Squirrel. He talks about in his book, oh, Quentin loves Squirrel so much. Quentin's got the hot for Squirrel, and that's really what it was. He was completely infatuated by this young man who had the chiseled body, who was perfect. And honestly, he would become sexually aroused anytime that he would see a Squirrel at his friend's house that lived next to Quentin's grandmother. This is a sign of paraphilia. Any type of peeping, any type of situation where the victim doesn't know and he's being looked on. And Quentin, it did take place in this, and this was a situation that was very disturbing. He did say he became sexually aroused. He talks about many times throughout the book how his genitals became hard, and it was very disturbing, honestly. Joyce Carol Oates really gave graphic details that made you see exactly what was taking place as you read the book. Okay, it is said that paraphilia is actually something that starts with adolescence. Quentin did not talk much about his childhood. He did mention one event that seemed to disturb him, and that was the death of his friend Barry. Barry was in a swimming accident when Quentin and him were young, and to me it came off as Quentin had some type of a crush on Barry in a way. And he talks about later on how he has grimy socks and newspaper clippings from the death of his friend, and he has them hidden in his secret place, which is very disturbing to know that that could be a sign of something that later on came up. Paraphilics often tend to be attracted to children. Quentin did show this. He was on probation, like I said, for the sexual molestation of a child. Squirrel was very young himself, and most of his victims that he talked about, even in the past, were very young in age. What seems so surprising to me is the fact that Quentin critiques himself throughout the book on the mistakes that he made with the zombies before. His main goal was to be successful in performing a transorbital lobotomy that stopped the right and left frontal lobes from functioning, and I guess ultimately would leave victims in a zombie type state. To me, that's completely impossible. I never thought that Quentin would be able to do this, and he got very frustrated when he didn't. There's no way. As I read the book, I was just completely appalled by the fact that he would think that it was possible to perform such a procedure on someone and for it to be successful to the point where you have your own living zombie. That's just to show you the mind state that Quentin was in and the type of issues that he honestly had. In certain situations, I felt sorry for Quentin. He comes off very shy, very timid. He talks about not being able to make eye contact with people a lot throughout the book, and becoming somewhat disturbed or bothered when people would look at him. He had an issue with thinking that people were passing judgment on him. That was one reason that he was looking for a zombie, somebody that would not judge him and that would just love him for who he was. And he talks about even with, he'd rather his victims, not look at him because of this. And paraphilia has a lot to do with not being able to have relationships, personal relationships and sexual relationships with individuals. So I definitely believe that Quentin suffered from a disorder called paraphilia, and it was something that is unfortunate. I was very surprised by this book, and I could honestly say that it was something that is a book that I would read again, even with it being as disturbing as it is. I would like to know more about what happened or why people think the way that they do. Paraphilia is something that is very serious, and it's has classifications such as necrophilia. And necrophilia honestly was almost where Quentin was, because he did say that he would do sexual acts on the bodies of his victims, some of them dying from these experiments, these transorbital lobotomies that he would try to perform. It's crazy. He really was a sick person, and he had a lot of issues. But I love this story, and I really enjoyed it. And I would like to thank you all for listening to me about my intake on zombies, and I really recommend everybody read that book. Thank you.